Welcome to Inspired by Design, the podcast where we explore the tools, stories, and insights to help you rediscover your authentic self and navigate life with less resistance. I'm Katie Rupert, a former hustle and grind overachiever on a thrilling and messy journey. I'd love to share what I'm learning and help others in self-discovery using human design. So, if you're seeking a way to move forward, let me be your weekly mindset coach and share stories to inspire you to action towards your unique purpose without the force or burnout. Welcome back. I am really excited to introduce you to Alexis. Today, we are continuing the series of interviews with the different human design types. And today, Projector. So if you are a projector listening, perk up your ears because Alexis is probably more well-versed in human design than even I am. She is a studier and just super smart. That's what I know about you, Alexis. So if you don't know your human design type, make sure that you run your chart. I have a link in the show notes to a free download where you can find out, is this your type or isn't? And maybe you want to do that even at the end so that you can guess, is this my type or not? Really, my goal with these interviews are to help you as the listener get a flavor of the actual experience from each different type, because especially for a projector, Alexis is going to have more insight and give you more of that real experience than me as a manifesting generator ever could. So Alexis, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And thank you for saying yes. I have loved every conversation that we've had so far. We have met to talk about astrology, which you have such a wealth of knowledge. And I didn't even know what Vedic astrology was when we met. And so you really enlightened me in so many ways. And you have really studied the human design system intellectually more than I have ever met anyone else. So I am so excited for people to hear your story. Why don't you just start with telling us a little bit about you, anything you feel relevant?
Sure. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to these systems. As you already covered that, I study Vedic and tropical astrology. I'm big into Bazi, which is Chinese astrology, numerology, and then human design. But I actually started more on the psychology side years ago, typology, which is MBTI, the Myers-Briggs, Enneagram. I enjoyed those kind of systems. Then it evolved at about 2017. And then aside from all that, I just primarily work in cybersecurity, disaster response, and physical security. So I do a lot. I dabble in a lot of things. It's kind of my background.
Yeah. Cool. It's so much. So you have so much insight and like learning those systems. What do you think draws you in to all of that? Because there's a theme there, even if they're different systems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's simple enough for me that I enjoy analysis, self-development, and building systems. So anything that I can go look at a pattern within those systems and build from that, and then like influence my life and other people's lives to their betterment, I'm interested in that, essentially.
It's perfect. It's such a projector thing, right? Like people to create that system. So you are a projector type in human design, the improver, the one that can look at the perspective and create efficiency. Your authority is the emotional authority, which we've talked about on this podcast. So if anyone doesn't know what that means, they can go back to that and maybe you'll be able to give us a little bit of insight to that as well. And then your personality profile, 3, 5, the martyr, the scientist, hands-on, the heretic leader, the problem solver. So I'm stoked to learn more. What do you think is one way that you've adjusted since learning human design specifically? How has it helped you with your life? Hopefully feel more ease or flow in daily. Tell us about the experience.
Oh, it's exactly the end result after years though of experimenting with this system is now a better state of flow. In the beginning, it was very difficult. When I discovered what my type was, I was discouraged because I thought that can't be right, that I'm not a sacral. I had been spending my life going. And to hear that I'm not supposed to be doing that was like, I don't know about this. But it was well timed because it was at about that point in my life I had been doing so much in terms of output for my career and everything else in my life. I was burned out. I was so depleted. So the first experimenting process for me was, how do I put proper boundaries and restrictions into that without losing my edge, without losing all this success I built for myself. But the reality is that success was not really sustainable anyways. So I started to take a lot less on, and also begin to understand through human design that as a projector, it's not for me to always come in and initiate everything and take everything on just because I have an idea or I see a solution. So learning to wait for the invitation, which is a classic assignment for this type as a projector. And there's a lot of debate on what that means. It could be as simple as an eye contact. It could be as simple as somebody comes to you and says, hey, I know you, like you approached me, hey, would you like to be on this podcast? I didn't initiate that. I didn't go looking for this opportunity. And that's important because you will spread yourself thin. I have found as a projector if you just try to take it all on.
Yeah. Wow. Well spoken. Yeah. The waiting for invite from projector. Now, I'm not a projector, but almost all of my circuitry is projected circuitry. So learning to pause and wait for someone to ask me for what I'm
right.
at, or even being able to tee myself up before I just start talking is a way to, I mean, for you as a projector, to preserve your energy and make sure that, you're following where you do have energy to give and not burning out and depleting, like you mentioned. On the other side, like for me, it's like, I won't be heard if I don't wait for the
right.
invitation.
Exactly.
So it's a matter of, hey, I have something to share. Would you like to hear it? And being able to wait and see if they do or not. And also being able to keep my mouth shut if.
yeah. Sometimes it's difficult, especially in the jobs that I'm in. Like I'm on a new project right now. And so I think one of the things that's really good for a projector is getting to be a subject matter expert in something, getting to come in and improve. You're pulled on for your consultation, to your advice, your guidance. You get pulled into these situations and you get to see things grow and build. It took me a lot to learn that that is actually where I'm very good at, but I can't do it all the time. So it's kind of bittersweet. I get to come in, I get to see things grow, but it always isn't that seamless either. Like, I know a lot in human design, just follow this and it'll work out. But, the real world is not as forgiving. So even in my current role right now, I have a lot of ideas and there's just a lot of, we don't want to do that. So you're like, okay, we'll just wait until you get to that point and then I'll be here holding all of the answers. It's just a constant back and forth like that. So.
Yes. I mean, I feel like anywhere you work is so lucky to have you. I know when I've got all the ideas, but you hold this power, this special gift of being able to really see it and create those answers. And it's because I believe in human design and I've done my testing to know that it works and I believe that I can trust it. I'm like, where's my projector? I gotta get, like,
yeah.
who can I ask for help? Gosh, I love it so much. Thank you. Now you're a projector you've got emotional authority. So a lot of projectors, I don't know what the percentage of, you might, but I see a lot of projectors that have like splenic authority, or usually it's either splenic or emotional. But when you think about an emotional authority waiting for clarity, you're waiting for an invitation, then you're waiting for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about how you sit with making just daily decisions, and maybe you have an example of where waiting helped you, like having that emotional authority and waiting for the time helped you. I mean, I just want to point out here, I'm sorry, I know I asked the question, now I'm talking, but the thing about being an emotional authority is that there's a depth of discovery when trying to make a decision as an emotional authority, which I kind of envy, right? Like being able to go the distance and have the endurance. That's kind of the vibe I get from emotional authorities. If it's right for them, they have the endurance to see it all the way through. And that might mean sometimes a 12-hour day or a 12-month commitment. And so I'm curious what that experience is like, or maybe you have some examples of being a projector with this emotional authority and how that works for you, or what it feels like even.
Yeah, it definitely is a little more precarious because you have to wait for the invitation, which there's already that whole, as you mentioned, with having so much of that in your own chart. Am I going to get that opportunity? Is it going to come for me? But then even when it does arrive, I have to sit and feel it out if that is the right thing for me and trust that process. And something I have observed in all of my experimentation is if I tend to commit to something in a high, that engagement will require me to sustain a high output. If I meet it in a low, then I'm creating a contract in a low state. And those environments tend to keep me entangled in those things.
Mhm.
But if it's in a middle ground, a neutral, like I've gone through the ups and downs, and at the lowest point, I sorted that out. At the highest point, I sorted that out. I can now proceed forward into that contract, knowing how this is going to be for me and say yes or no on that. But it's not clear. Emotions are not direct. They don't come overnight. They take time. So yeah, you imagine this opportunity comes to you, say it's something life changing, and you feel this pressure. I got to say yes right now because it'll be over. They're not going to wait for me. I have learned that the right things will, and it is daunting sometimes because you don't know. For everyone, it's different how long that time is going to be, depending on what it is. You know how long it's going to take for you to go through those highs and lows and sort it out.
Yeah, so insightful. My brain is exploding with, oh my God, I'm going to add that to my readings, right? So what you said that was so insightful to me, like I always explain the emotional wave as, you don't want to commit when you're at a 1 out of 10 on your like I feel depressed. I don't want to get out of bed. Of course I'm going to say no to everything.
Right.
And then 10 where you're like, hell yeah, let's go, let's do all the things. And then being able and then having regret if you do it in the moment because, oh, I don't have the energy for this, or I
Exactly.
should have done it, man. I was just in a bad mood that day or something.
Right.
So waiting till you're at that neutral place, knowing clarity isn't in the now. But I loved the way you described it. I'll definitely be going back and getting your wording from them. So well said. Do you have like an example of how you do this in everyday life? Because I'm always looking for that, like, how do I practice waiting for an invite? How do I practice or tell someone to practice waiting out their wave? Like, even not what's for dinner, but should I take
Right.
a
Because
job
those
role?
are right. Those are some of the smaller things. And I, to be honest, don't tend to put a lot of that processing into little things, but it depends. I would say it's like this. If you're not tuning it in on a lot of little things, it does add up. But you can kind of get away with not always using it for the little things. For the major things, life-changing, huge commitments, entering relationships, long-term relationships. This one is difficult because to enter out of it becomes even more difficult if you don't enter it on the right ground. So that's another one that's just you have to be very careful. But for me, it's a part of getting to know yourself. And I think that's kind of unique to emotions, right? They're watery, they're flowing, they're not clear cut. So it's going to be a unique process for everyone. And then if you get into the more advanced level of human design, each gate off of that solar plexus that will create that operates differently. You have tribal, individual, and collective. And the one that makes it for me is, as a friend told me, is called the ratchet and explode energy. So it builds up and it builds up and it builds up until it needs a place to explode. So that's an unfortunate emotional process because I don't know until I suddenly know, and it's uncomfortable. But some of the smaller, simpler things are, for example, I know if I just wake up and I stay in my house all day, I'm less inclined to go out and do anything. But I don't listen to that low period. If I go out and like clear myself from all of that, suddenly my energy rises up. And I've just learned that about myself to not like, if I'm invited out to go do something and I've been in my house for a couple of days, I'm probably going to say no and I need to get out of that environment. But that could also be more because I'm a triple split. Like I get stuck if I'm not out being bridged, you know? So there's all these complexities to that process. And that's why it's going to be unique to everyone, I think, when it comes to how you process your emotional flow.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I am resisting the urge to go and talk about triple split, but I think because it's more of a 201 kind of thing with human design. But what I would take from what you just shared, especially if there's someone projector that's trying to preserve their energy or feeling burnt out, or an emotional authority, someone that's just like maybe they just their expectations got crashed and now they feel icky and they don't want to go anywhere. Learning about yourself, like, hey, I'm going to need to force myself to walk out the door, go get some sunshine, go ahead and do something so that like I don't just get stuck here.
Right.
The idea of like breeds like. If you're at home, especially I
Yeah.
imagine as a projector, if you're at home and you're hermiting in, then it gets real easy real fast to keep doing that, and it's harder and harder to get out of the shell. And so I can't even imagine what 2020 was like for you.
It was actually a good downtime because I got a break from being out with that sacral energy all the time. So I was working
Yeah.
so much and then I took time off. But I would say for an emotional process is I think it's difficult to be around people who like to be in that, and then with all these world pressures that want you to just have an answer immediately. So it's like, if you are feeling tired and down, just ride that wave. But if it starts to go on too long, sometimes you have to change your environment or change your circumstances. And there's things within a human design chart that also speak to that, and it depends on the individual in that case. But we move slower in that sense. And as a projector, and if you're emotional, it's difficult because you're waiting for the invitation, you're waiting to feel something out, and it feels like everyone else is able to just say, yeah, I want to do this. No, I don't want to do that. And you have to be like, well, and this is something I use in friendships a lot, is I'll get back to you. And I used to not be that person. I used to always have an answer. I used to always be ready to go. That was kind of my edge. And now it's like, well, I don't know yet, and so I have to take time and I have to step away, and I'm that guy now.
I love that you're giving to that, because like you said, we just live in this generator world that demands it. So the flip side of that I always try to encourage, like my clients, when they have an emotional authority, it's, you get to empower yourself to make people wait on you and take as much time as you need, period. Like, this is your
That's
way.
perfect. Yeah.
And taking up space and taking up time is the way that you're serving them in the long run as well. So when it's just, yeah, it's too soon. Train everyone in your life to wait on you.
Exactly, really. And it's difficult in the beginning when you get into this system, because I experimented in my friendships without telling them, which was a risk, which was that instead of initiating, like, we're going to hang out, instead of reaching out, I would see what would come to me and how those engagements actually flowed better. Same thing emotionally, is just being like, I used to feel bad. I used to feel guilt if I was like, oh, I'm actually too tired for this, and we haven't seen each other in 3 months. I started just owning it, listening to my body in that sense. And that's also another tool, is if you just take 5 seconds to pause when a decision is coming in and feel emotionally in your body. I have learned to tune in, like, I'm actually really tired. So no, I'm not going to agree to this. But you have to stop being in the flow of like, I'm going, especially if you're around other people who are defining that cycle for you, you'll lose track of what your authority is and what you should be doing.
Right. Okay. So you've given us tools and what it's like to have this, as you've already experimented with it, but can you share a time where you weren't listening to being a projector, or like how that plays out? You've kind of hinted at it already, right? But when did you go against your design? What was that like? How have you noticed that change or that switch? I don't know if you have a specific example, but when you're not listening to your design, what happens?
As a projector, sometimes in community settings in the past, I was inclined to, if I saw that something needed to be corrected or could be improved, inserting myself and insisting upon this needs to be at this certain standard. And it was grating against everyone, because as a projector, our aura is projected outward. And if they're not ready for it, it's an intrusion of their space. And so I have this pressure to just speak what I see when I see it, but that's not for us to do. And so I had to learn the hard way, and a lot of social settings, to not do that. As for emotional, though, some of the bigger ones I've done is agreeing into contracts, like in my career. A big one I did was in about 2017. I think overall it wasn't the worst decision, but emotionally I took it very quickly. I didn't slow down. And by the time I got relocated and everything was set up, I hit a huge wave of physical burnout. I mean, I was in bed 4 months, like I just couldn't function. So, not listening to your authority, and especially as a projector, because we don't have that consistent energy, it will have physical consequences. So, it's important to listen to those things that will add up over time if you don't.
Wow. Yes, such a good reminder. The system is all about body wisdom, truly. It's like, we tend to be a society that's thinking they're just little floating brains walking around.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's all in the mind. And yet most of our energy is held in almost all of our authority, if not all, it's all in our body. And if we only have one side working, it's not balanced at all. One of the things that I'll mention to projectors sometimes in a reading is, when you give advice and they don't take it, and then you're like, I told you so. Right. So this happens over and over when a projector isn't waiting and waiting to be invited to share, because gosh darn it, you see the problem and you want to, it's all in
It's
good
difficult.
help.
Yep.
Like I want to help. I see how this could be better. Like, oh my God, you're being so scattered. You're being so crazy. Like, just let's pull it together. People, can't you see? And then when they don't listen or don't take your advice, it's like, see, I should, and then there's resentment or there's, I,
Bitterness too. Yeah, you get really stewed up inside. For me, like been in a lot of dynamics like that. I'm sure other projectors would relate, where you're sitting there, and it happens in friendships too with the people they're dealing with. And I'll be like, I'm telling you, this, and this is going to lead to this, and they don't listen, and then it happens, and I'm sitting there. But I've come to actually be merciful with myself in that, which allows me to be merciful with others. And it's that the human experience is going to teach them. Like, you don't always have to be there trying to control everything, you know?
yeah, yeah. What if by you not sharing and them not inviting, and then you could have helped them instead of making it about you, just remembering this was the journey they needed. They weren't
Right.
learn the lesson unless they did it the hard way without my help, right?
Exactly.
Um, but I know it has to be so rewarding and satisfying to get that invite, help someone see how it works, and I know you're getting that with your job and in relationships now too. What a beautiful way to have that transition and see how
Absolutely.
supportive. Well, let's talk a little bit about your personality profile. So 3-5, um, how does that play in, and how has this helped you with communication or relationships overall? What is it like as a 3-5 projector?
I get to try all the things whenever I feel like it. It's kind of how it feels. And it's also bound to that emotionally too, as the wave is, I don't want to experiment. I don't want to take on, or I'm projected on, as you know, with that 5 line, certain expectations. I think that's some of the hardest thing is I have been in situations, mind-boggling situations where people have expected things of me. I come to find out that are so beyond my capabilities or anything I ever presented. And it's hard because sometimes my success or the relationships are forged on that, and it's just a matter of time. Then this imposter syndrome comes up. They're just going to find out I'm not actually as good as what they expected me to be. But over time, I've come to understand the thing with 3-5 is it's kind of a temporary thing. So with the jobs I get into or the friendships, sometimes I'm coming in for a moment to build and optimize or to guide and teach, and I'm learning too, but it often terminates and I move on. So and that prevents it from getting to that place where the resentment builds because, well, you should have been doing this. I expected this from you, or for you to save me from my problems. I give the tools and I move on. That's kind of an efficient process for me as a 3-5. It doesn't happen all the time, but in general, I try to tune that in when I'm entering into dynamics.
Hmm. That is, I mean, I so relate to that. I know our fives are in different places, but having someone expect that you're going to help them with a certain thing, you're like, that's not what I do. And then the being part of relationships for a time until they've run their course with me as well, and not attaching to that, I'm sure is tough, or it has been tough for me. But I like how you said it. I get to try, get to sample, I get to do some of that.
It's fun. But the other problem, though, is with 3-5 is I think some people see this as kind of a swashbuckling on the edge of the saddle energy, but they also don't see all the failures and all the things, all the risks you've taken and the low points as well. And some of the difficulties in some dynamics I've been in is that a 3-5 tends to not live, especially as a projector, a very standard or orthodox lifestyle. And so sometimes I will hear commentary that's like, it's a shame you didn't take a more consistent job. It's a shame you didn't end up in this role. And I'm like, it wasn't for me to do that. And it's hard because, especially with the emotional aspect, I have to get into things sometimes to find out, oh, this isn't what I wanted at all. And it looks like a failure, all the time, but it really is. It's evolving. I'm gaining skills. I think one of the most unique things about 3-5 is that no matter what you try to tell a 3-5, learning it out of a textbook, being told isn't going to inform us enough. We have to dive in hands on and figure it out as we go. So that's the blessing and the curse, the adventure and the pain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, really, at the end of the day, when you have 3, you're here to learn it the hard way, make the mistake. I never fail. I only learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Make that as your mantra and just know it's coming. Like, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and take the hard way. Thanks. Thanks anyway.
Yep. And everyone else around you is like, why would you do it that way? And you're like, just let me figure it out.
Yeah. That non-traditional, as a projector, the general advice is, hey, you're not meant for a 5-day a week, a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
And as a 3/5, like you said, like you got that in two places. So I love that you're owning it and you're able to have words for it. But I think there's probably a lot of people out there that they just self-judge or think that I'm bad, or oh, I should have,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm not as good as everyone else. So I can't imagine how much that shows up for someone that doesn't know their design yet or hasn't done that work yet. Of you don't have to know human design to get to a place where you feel like a confident adult that is doing their work, but I do think it's a fast forward button for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So I guess that this is a good time to ask about what advice, what if you're, let's say a projector's listening, or they find out they're a projector today and they've been living their life here in this generator world. How would you tell them to honor their design, to get started in a little way? Or do you have a suggestion that doesn't blow up their life and change it completely, that they could just kind of dabble in and start their experiment?
Yeah, well, then that's just it. I think little experiments and let them add up over time. It allows you to see what works and what doesn't work for you as a projector. But understanding if you're feeling burnout, if you're feeling discouraged, if you feel like you're surrounded by people that can just get it done and you struggle, you go from these waves of, because this is the issue with an open sackle for a projector, is we will amplify that energy that's put into us so we can seem like we can do it all for a point in time, and it leads to great success, and then we fall very hard, and you're living this repeating life cycle. Why can't I just sustain like everyone else? You're not crazy.
Yeah.
And it takes time, if you are living that lifestyle, to reorient towards a more properly aligned lifestyle. So like you said, small steps, right? Because sometimes the more radical ones would require a whole change of job, a whole change of dynamic, and that's a lot to ask of anybody. So some of the smaller things is just, I reevaluated my friendships, my energetic commitment in those. I made sure that I could fine tune them over time through communication and experimentation to see what aligned with my authority, my profile, and my type, and that it respected my energy. And that learning to trust this process, I think, because there's this constant pressure as a projector. I'm never going to get the opportunity, or people won't wait for me, or I'm going to miss out. Learning to fortify the reward system kind of in your brain of, look, this is what happens if you actually try this, if you just let it come to you instead of going towards it all the time, and then becoming more confident and branching out in that way. And then there's just little things. I mean, you can do it in your day to day. I think it's important for a projector to have a place where they are heard as a subject matter expert in something. And with the internet, you can create a blog, you can create a YouTube channel, and it allows you to put those things out there and people can come to you on their terms. So that's a small, like getting your needs met in a little way like that, that I do in my free time.
Beautifully said. So wonderful. And I've just got to mention, this is the most efficient podcast recording that I have ever had. And I love, like, before we got on, Alexis, you told me that you had spent time considering the questions and like taking some bullet points and stuff. And
Yep.
I mean, just such a great example also of how a projector can just create efficiency for our world. We need it so badly. So here's my invite: is everything that you prepared, right? If there is something in those notes that you didn't get a chance to say, or if there's anything else on your mind, even if you have to popcorn back, I would love for you to share any of the things that you prepared, because I think they'll be valuable. So is there anything left that you would be willing and able to share?
Yeah, there's a couple of points that I put in there that I learned throughout my journey of communicating with other people in human design and figuring it out the hard way for myself. One of those things is that we are not meant to be entrepreneurs as projectors. So one of the things we're told is, oh, well, you don't have this kind of sustainable energy. Why don't you just go out and do your own job? We're actually best designed to work within an established structure where we're guiding and counseling. So in certain fields, becoming a subject matter expert, or if you are going to go your own way, understand it's not going to be this conventional entrepreneurial job where that it's constantly hustling, the money's coming in. We just can't sustain that. So becoming a counselor, a psychologist, or like you're doing is also very good for a projector. This podcast, you're putting your wisdom out there. People get to come in and you have a lot of projected lines. Like that is the perfect strategy for a projector. I had a friend, just from my personal experience, I wanted to get into art as a side thing. But as soon as I freed myself from the corporate environment, I wasn't inspired to do anything. It's like when I was in those structures, it gave me a purpose to guide. And my friend who's a manifesting generator went on to do the same thing I did, and they're successfully doing their own art business. So it was difficult to see that, but human design kind of freed me up of that burden of like, that's not for me to do though. I'm not supposed to go off and build all that out for myself. I'm supposed to wait until people approach me and then give advice. So however that manifests, whether it's going to be in a job or that's going to be in your family and your friendships, you'll find the niche that's good for you if you experiment, I think. The other thing that's fascinating from a health standpoint is that we need a lot of time to unwind before bed. And this was fascinating because I find that I spend up to an hour and a half just getting into bed before I plan to sleep, of just like reading books and just defragging, as I call it. And it allows me to go to sleep. Like, I don't count the time I sleep from right when I get into bed. You need that time to unfurl as a projector because you've been charged up all day, often by the proximity of other defined sacrals. So it's something worth experimenting with. Going to bed a bit earlier and just laying there, just letting things unravel, and then going to sleep is very beneficial. And finally, napping is apparently a strategy for projectors to preserve our energy. And I have a 2/4 projector friend who naps religiously. It's difficult for me to do it. I have a lot of stuff on my route. I think that prevents, I always have to stay in motion, but getting naps will be very good throughout the day. If you want to do it all, it helps you. I would say that as well. So.
Great advice. I love it. Is there anything else that's on your mind that you might want to share? Gosh, you're such a wealth of wisdom, right? I just love learning from you. So.
Learn the hard way. No.
Anything?
I don't know. I would just say, as you're entering this, it's okay to say no and to learn to trust that the right thing will come to you in the right time. In our downtime, what do you do when you're not being recognized? Invest in your hobbies, invest in your interests. And that's kind of like right now, I spend all my free time studying these systems, and you've approached me. I'm getting recognized. I get to get the opportunity to provide advice. And that's kind of the life cycle for a projector. And it's fun and exciting when you see it click. I've had people come to me. I'm not as social as I used to be, and I've pulled back. And I've had people now approach me when they're ready, which is the proper strategy for projectors, right? We get invited and our energy is not too much suddenly because people want it. And I gave someone some advice and I stepped away, and I don't expect anything from it, which as a subset can be a healthy coping mechanism for projectors, is non-attachment to the outcome. Just don't try to sit there. You'll be bitter. You'll be torn up when people don't listen to you. So don't get hung up on that. But I was surprised because this individual did come back and said for weeks, they had been listening, processing what I had told them, and they made changes in their life and saw benefits. And I was like, if only everyone else would just do that, it's how it felt. But it's like, those are those golden moments, so just trust these things will come to you. And it's a great feeling when it's done the right way. I can't say that enough.
Lovely. Well, thank you. This was so enlightening. I learned so much, and I know anyone listening that knows a projector or lives with a projector can really take some of this insight, this wisdom, if they apply it.
That's right.
Then it will make a big difference. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your energy with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I hope we might have to do this again, right? It was so fun. I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Well, that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a fantastic week, and we will see you next Friday for our next interview.
Thanks for tuning in to Inspired by Design with Katie Ruberg. If today's episode sparked something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Share your takeaways, subscribe, or even leave a review to help others find the show. For more tools and insights, visit my free Facebook group. And until next time, keep embracing exactly who you are and move forward one inspired action at a time.